So, Dele, thank you so much for agreeing to connect with me and chat with me about this. It's such a privilege and a blessing to have this time with you again. It's been a little bit too long, so I'm grateful to have this little window of space together. So, I am really excited to just hear your thoughts on some of these things. And so when I think about you, your energy every when I think back to the conversations, the meetings we've had over the years, I experience so much joy and so much love and so much just the sense of groundedness and the sense of peace from you. And now, just with the state of the world, the poly crisis, the political climate in the States, wildfires, genocides. There's so much going on in the world, and so many people, so many activists, so many everyday people are feeling such deep despair, such a sense of overwhelm, and people are starting to panic. And I still see you. I look at you today, and you have this beautiful, gentle smile on your face, and you still carry this sense of peace and love and joy with you. So what helps you? What is your secret to having balance in all of this?
Well, peace and blessings back at you, Bonita. And I am really happy to be having this conversation with you. I really think that our work represents two almost directly complementary aspects of the environmental narrative. I appreciate your deep dive into grief, and we need to do that. We need to let go of so many things. And then here's my narrative is that, hey, let's swing into joy. Let's create, something new. Uh, so first, I have to say that I fiercely defend my birthright as a human being, and that birthright includes joy. No one should be allowed to steal your joy for any reason. And so I have personal practices that protect that. And then there's the communal practices that where I also receive joy. And the young people that I see being called to the land by spirit, the young people who are leaving lucrative careers and very prestigious jobs, they're saying, no, the spirit told me to go to the land. They don't even know what they're doing, but they are going, they are dedicated, and they have practices for behaving differently and speaking differently to one another. And I really appreciate that. And another aspect of that secret is my relationship with Earth Mother that is just continuing to grow, evolve, and to blossom. And it's really not possible to be depressed when you are really in communion, where you feel a oneness with nature. Now, yes, we can be sad, we can have grief, but to watch the abundance, to really feel the energetic flow that is happening with Earth Mother, that's increasing right now, that's another part of the secret. And that's part of what I try to teach people.
I love that so much. It just gives me goosebumps to hear you, when I think of young people and my work with young people too. And it's such a balm for my heart and my spirit to be actively trying to support them. And I also just learn so much from that process too. So I love how you
Mhm.
describe that.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, when I think about the climate crisis, the poly crises that we're living in, I think it it really points to how industrial societies, how the dominant colonial um, paradigm has is consuming, has consumed lands, communities, and I think it really shows how much this paradigm has lost its way, how much industrial society and industrial civilization has lost its way. So, what do you think is the key to us addressing the climate crisis and the poly crisis?
Yes, addressing the key issue. That is so important because there are so many aspects that are floating all around us. So, what we have to remember is that we're in this position by force. We did not stumble into these mistakes. We were pushed. And we stay in these mistakes by all sorts of institutional and social violence. So, we need to address what allowed all of this violence to take over our community. And as I've been studying this over the years, I have really come to the conclusion that the linchpin to this is the divine feminine. Our forests were not just destroyed, the culture that protected the forest was also destroyed, and it was the women who held that culture. And so, by demonizing the women, by just creating all sorts of obstacles to women being who we're supposed to be, that's part of the problem. And so it's up to the divine feminine to be gently brought back into the conversation. I think it needs to be central because the issue is balance. And without the divine feminine and the divine masculine working together in harmony, there can be no balance. Mother Nature shows us how to balance. And that's part of the core issue. So, because I believe that so strongly, I have connected with my Mi'kmaq elders who are coming and working with the young adults that I am working with to have a community of practice so that we can practice this forest culture. We can practice the social norms that mirror the elements of nature. I co-founded Soil and Souls, and this is what we've been doing for about a year and a half. We're going to resume this practice now that I'm in Louisiana, and I'll let you know when that happens.
And I think that's a beautiful thread just leading to my next question for you, which is about, when you think about the past and present experiences, the knowledge, the wisdom of Indigenous communities, your Mi'kmaq lineage, and also of Black communities, what does that teach us? What does that show us about the way forward? Just, like the amount of loss and oppression and just the that these communities have, that the crises that we're experiencing now might be new to privileged people such as myself, middle class people, light skinned people, people who grew up and had the privilege of,
Being
having
safe.
access to being safe, right? Being safe, having access to food and housing um, and and school, and how, so Black and Indigenous communities have have had to fight for that for generations. And so this crisis, this existential crisis for survival, has been present, for these communities, for your communities, for many communities, for more than decades, for hundreds of years. And so, what do those past experiences and what do these continued struggles teach us collectively now about our, the possible steps forward, the survival of humanity, and just our like the possibility of thriving through systems that are built to crush us, that are built to crush our communities, that are built to rape our lands and waters.
Yeah, you're really right, Bonita. Black and Indigenous communities have been dealing with this oppression. We have been overcoming this oppression for a long, long, long time. And that's what I draw strength from. My ancestors had to deal with far worse than what I have to deal with, and their intention and their teachings were just about retain your humanity. That's the important thing. Do not let any circumstance overtake your soul. So the way forward is resuming balance between our spiritual well-being and our ecological well-being. What has always helped us is just an indomitable trust with our creator and communion with creation. And so that's what needs to be resumed. When you look at our liberators, we find that they have always had a special relationship with nature. It's just not been reported. And one example is Sojourner Truth. As a child, she created a prayer house outdoors because she believed God heard you better in nature. And she says she went there at least once a day. That's where she gained her strength to be the powerful voice that she became as an abolitionist and also within the women's rights movement. So I say, let's just follow the lead of our ancestors. Let's get back to nature. Let's restore our relationships with one another. And let's understand, what does it really mean to practice all our relations? If you want one of those 25 word or less responses to what do Black and Indigenous people do, I think we walk in truth and we walk with truth. That's it. Let's move into this next dimension of living with Earth.
Oh, well, as I'm listening to you, I think what just became more clear to me was this piece. You talked about ceremony, and you also talked about worshiping in nature, and what just part of kind of what bubbled up in me as you were speaking, I just realized that like this last year and a half in particular, I have noticed how much more I have been engaged in community, in activism, in social action, and how much that takes from me, and just kind of the inner, just the 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 murkiness that clouds my inner state as I'm engaging in that work, because and I realize again that these systems that we are struggling against, that we are trying to, like we're trying to break through the cracks, trying to recreate, rebirth this world that we love and that is so precious to us. Um, that the same way that these systems pollute our waters and our soils, they also pollute our hearts and our spirits and our minds. And as you were speaking about ceremony and just worshiping in nature and going back to the forest, going back to the water, it became really crystal clear for me that, oh, that part of this purpose of ceremony, or what it serves, like the role that it serves in my life, is actually it helps to kind of purify that pollution in my inner space so that I can
Yeah.
continue this work that I feel so called to do and that so many of us feel called to do in this time.
Yeah.
Dele, this is your words, your friendship is just all of that is such a gift to me. When I don't know if I ever told you this, but when I first started when I first moved back to so-called Ontario, and was practicing permaculture here, in that period of my life, the my work in the permaculture community, teaching permaculture, working with clients, was a very separate strand from my spiritual practice. Like it was at that point in my life, which was, maybe 15 years ago, it was like those two strands were very strong in me, that they were separate. And it took me, years to realize that I wanted to braid them back together. And in this last, 5 to 10 years, I've been just sometimes consciously, sometimes subconsciously, just finding new ways to to braid those threads more closely together, and they just keep coming together more and more strongly. And this conversation with you also is just kind of another of those, like that bringing together of these strands that have always belonged together. And for me, that's just so precious. In about 2, 3 weeks, I'll be going on a water walk ceremony with
Ooh.
a dear friend who is an Anishinaabe grandmother. This is my fifth year going with her.
Oh,
And I'm just so looking forward to this time in community and to this time with Mother Water and to this time to just be in ceremony. And particularly, I think what is so and I think it just kind of speaks back to this piece that I'm experiencing with you right now, like this reweaving of the pieces that actually belong together, is that for me, what makes the water walk ceremony very particular and challenging and just very apropos to my life is that it happens on the side of the road. Like we walk on the side of the highway. And my first year, I was so resistant to it. Like the part of me was like, this is such a beautiful ceremony. Why can't we do this in the wilderness? Why can't we do this in the forest? And then I realized within the first day, oh, actually, the healing that we're walking for, the healing that we're singing for, we need that on the side of this highway. Like that's why we're walking these places. We're walking beside these polluted waters. We're walking beside these places where there is destruction. And so that is such so just this reweaving. So thank you for our time today. And thank you just for the ways in which my relationship with you over the years has been part of that reweaving of these strands that actually belong together. This, our,
oh,
our work on the land, our work, our beautiful, beloved work with the soil in community, and our connection with Creator, with Spirit. Thank you for being a part of helping me reweave those pieces. For just, yeah,
oh.
you're such a continued light in my life. So thank you.